Welcome to that Indie Talk podcast. This is going to be one of the episodes for Women's Month, part of the By the Woman series. And the focus of today's discussion is going to be discussing you as a person, getting to know you better as a woman who runs, and also the one topic we selected, which was women's clothes, specifically exercise clothes, and we're just going to unpack that. Yeah, so welcome to everybody who's joining. Monique is an amazing runner. She absolutely loves running and has been doing it for so many years, but we'll get into that a little bit later. And she's currently a master's student, am I correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yes, and also her master's topic is very interesting as well. I'm hoping we'll have time to just touch on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, welcome, Monique. Is there anything that I missed about you?
No, I'm just very eager to, I think a very gentle introduction would be sufficient, which I think we've covered. And I'd really love to just dive right into what we have. So just to give you some context, Atli and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and we decided to not go straight into doing a podcast. We decided to have a pre-conversation where we got to know each other and we got to touch base on what our mutual interest was before we just dived into creating a podcast. And so this conversation surrounds one of the topics that came up, because what was supposedly was supposed to be a very short conversation ended up being well over an hour. And from that came something that is very prominent, is the women's activewear and how that impacts how women move in spaces, in outdoor spaces, and how what we sort of have to think about, the thought processes leading up to actually moving into active spaces. Yeah, the internal dialogue.
But before we get to the internal monologue, so when we were speaking the last time, you mentioned that you've been running since primary school,
Yeah.
right? You've been active from primary school until your adult life right now. So just incorporating that topic where you're talking about clothes, right? When you're a child, you don't really think a lot about what you're wearing. But as you grow up, you start thinking and thinking, am I wearing the correct thing? So just take us through like your fitness journey, basically from when you were a child to basically now.
Okay. Sorry, Atli. I know that introductions would probably be solid. I think it's just because I've made some notes and my heart's very it feels like it's on fire. So that's it comes to the forefront. So of course, okay, we're just gonna, now that you know what we're gonna be talking about today, I'm just gonna take a step back and give you a bit of a background. I went to my very, very first experience with running was probably grade 1 and 2. And that was at a government school in Athlone. And this was the extent of sport at our school. There were no extramural activities. There were no clubs or societies. We had an annual sports day, and that was it. And you just had to run. We did these races, 100-meter races and relays. And that was the first. I have this very clear memory. I can remember the grass. I remember the chalk painted into the grass. I remember how many lanes there were. I remember the way my body moved. I remember running as fast as my little thin legs could carry me. And I just remember feeling so alive. And it's that feeling that keeps me running. It's that feeling that, pulls me out of my house and onto the road, pulls me out of my house and into the mountains. It's that feeling.
And in that moment when you're running and you're feeling free, right? You're not, as a child, you're not thinking about what am I wearing?
I mean, no, you just wear it doesn't really matter. We had like PE clothes or sports togs, but really, you could run in anything, absolutely anything. We actually didn't even wear shoes because it was grass. We would just run barefoot. We just do those races barefoot. So in terms of access and entry boundaries, or entry limitations, there were none. You could literally just run in
Uh,
school clothes.
oh yeah, that's true. We also had a similar sports day, and it happened like at the beginning of the year, but they were used as a way to select people to push through to the to the district
Yeah.
competition and the provincial and then ultimately the national. For our last during our last conversation, you also mentioned that you had moved away from that school and you went to another school, and that opened your mind up to like a whole new experience of sports and movement.
Yeah. Thank you for holding me true to that. So I've spent my first 3 years in a government school, and then I went to my parents moved to the deep south, and I got put in a school of privilege, which was very, very different to the government school that I was used to, you know. And so again, at the annual, as in many schools, we had an annual sports day. And actually, just to take a step back, I just went
Mm,
into the school and partook in the academics. I did what was required of me. I went to school and I came home. And I had a very vague idea of extramural activities, or that things were happening outside of school
mm,
hours. But I just felt like it didn't really occur to me that I could participate. It didn't occur to me
mm,
that this was something that I could do. And so I didn't. I didn't. And so at the annual sports day, I ran because every class needed to run. And the athletics teacher came to me afterwards and she put both of her hands on my shoulders and she's just like, you you are coming to cross country practice. And I did. She said, come on Monday at 7 o'clock before school started. And I arrived. And that was where everything changed for me, because a whole new, my world kind of went from this to this, because this teacher just took
mm,
my hand and she ran, quite literally ran with me. And she says, she told me she'd let me join the cross country team, the athletics team. She was the reason that she coached me for Western Province. She was right there. Yeah, I think the role of her, she's definitely, if I think of teachers who've impacted my life or people that have impacted my life, I can definitely tell you now that it was Mrs. Clarkford.
and the lessons that she taught you, or the impact that she made on you at that point in life, it still resonates with you even now, right?
Yeah. I still, when I'm in my home surrounds or of the school, I go visit her, just because, um, yeah, because since then, I've never stopped running. She
Mm,
saw, she saw me, and in turn allowed me to see myself, and as an adult, see people around me.
mm, mm, mm. So at what point, you've been running all these years. At what point or occurrence does it click to you that, hey, I'm actually thinking about what I'm wearing, and I need to make an active decision on what I'm going to wear when I go exercise.
I think at maybe in university, I'd say that was like, I think maybe it's earlier for some people because I've had this conversation with people, and I think it's
Mm,
a lot earlier now. I know that my niece, who's just in her second year of university, she's felt like this for a good few years. So that's already in high school. Whereas I didn't really feel that in high school. I think it's just the normal what you wear, but it wasn't related to specifically, sorry, being a woman. Whereas I feel now as an
mm,
adult, I'm very, it's a limitation for me, because, and that brings us into what we're going to be talking about today, and that
yes.
is perfect bridge. Thank you. Yeah, the concerns surrounding, or the limitations of, women's activewear, and how I've always felt, I think I've always felt comfortable before, to be honest. I have subscribed to or I previously have subscribed to, yeah, to looking good in activewear, and I was very much a part of that until very recently, when I realized, I was like, these are my only options: tights and tiny shorts. Why is this my only options? You know, yes, if I want to wear tiny shorts, yeah, go for it. Please, this is not exclusive of that. It's absolutely your choice, but I want to have the choice of something else. I want to have the choice where to wear something that doesn't hug every inch of my body all the time. Yes, there are moments where I want that, but that's not every day, especially not running on a main road from Muizenberg to Fisher. You know, that's not what I want when yeah, I think a time and a place, and I think I call for options. And so I sat with this and I thought about it. What is, I guess it's the feeling of feeling exposed all the time, and getting the hoots and the whistles when you're on the road, when you're running. That when I decide to put something on my body, I have to think about how it will be received by somebody else, because the end result is making me feel uncomfortable. And I have thought about this. Well, how about I claim it? What if I claim it and I own myself, and I own my body, and I own what I wear? And I think that there is a space for it, Atlee, but I would still like the option. You know, if one day I'm feeling a little bit more introverted and I want to feel, you know, I just want to move without being viewed in that way, I want to have that option. And it's not currently available very much or even at all.
So take me through your current, let's say, thought process of it's winter and I need something to run in. What do you see when you get to a store?
Okay, I'm a slight outlier. Just in my specific situation, all of my, or most of my activewear has been given to me by my sisters. They buy lots of stuff and then, you know, they keep some for themselves and they give it to me. I'm the youngest of 6, so I always get not necessarily hand downs, but the excess in everyone's wardrobe. But even being on the receiving end of a gift, in terms of what I'm looking for, naturally I'm looking for something that's good, that covers that covers. I think if it's tights that I'm looking for, I don't like the 3/4. A full. I'm looking for practical, and I am looking for pretty. It's something that's going to look good, but also feel good to wear. Those are my two. I don't necessarily like the word pretty, but I do like that it's a P and a P. I love alliteration, so I'm going to go for practical and pretty until another word presents itself. But yes, and I think when I put tights on in winter, I'm almost grateful for the fact that it's cold, so that I have to wear a jacket that will cover my bum, my backside, my, you know, like I feel in summer, and in winter when I start to when I'm running and I get really hot, I have. Oh, Atlee, are you there? I see a circle.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
I also see it. No, it's gone now. I can hear you.
Okay. And when I get hot, I feel, you know, even though it's bulky and unnecessary and it weighs me down, but I tie it around my waist so that I can cover myself. Because of course tights are, it's very much in the word, it's tight. And yeah. And it brings me to the question, when I speak of an issue, I also really like to think of potential solutions.
Yes.
And I know that sometimes it does miss a very necessary process of just sitting with the problem for a little bit and just having the conversation and opening up yourself to it. Because I do tend to be goal orientated, but for the purpose of this conversation, actually, before we continue, is it okay? I know that there are a couple of people watching, just to ask, like, if other people feel this way, like if you have a comment, or if you'd like to, if you've ever felt exposed when you're running, and do you feel like women's activewear is limited? Is this something that's is it a shared concern, just by a show of like even a full stop or a yes, or yeah, if you feel the same way. Yeah. So in terms of moving into potential solutions, I thought about like whose responsibility this is. Is it my responsibility to look for brands that are more diverse in their clothing options? Is this up to big brands like Nike, Adidas, Under Armour? Should they be offering more aerodynamic, waterproof, non-tight clothing? Is this yeah, where does the responsibility lie? And I did have written down some potential solutions. I've named them. I thought about the idea of skirts, just like
Yes.
having the shorts and then the skirt around it. I've thought of
Yes.
even maybe sweat-proof, light, baggy tracksuit pants. I don't know if that can be a thing, but something that I can run in without feeling like exposed again, because that's what I feel. So those two
It
things, and
can.
then I thought, oh yeah, sorry.
I actually have a pair of running pants. So they are not tight like tights, but they're also not loose. They're not loose to the tracksuit pants. Tracksuit pants, they have that material that's like it's like
Yeah.
when you're moving you can hear, yeah. I feel
Yes.
it's whoosh whoosh. So I actually have running pants that are not they're not they're not tight, but they're also not loose to the extent that you can hear the sound. And the material also is not made from that material of tracksuit pants. So that's also a solution. But the thing is, it's made in such limited quantities, and it's only probably made by Nike, and it's on the men's section as well. So you're probably gonna get a men's cut, you know?
Do you know,
So for a
like,
smaller girl
what?
who's extra small, the men's small is still gonna be too big, you know? So that's one of the things. And then you mentioned pretty and practical. So I have a couple of women's tights because you can't always get men's tights when you want them, and the designs are horrible. But anyway, we're not talking about that. Um,
But
so the
that's a
women's
good
tights that
point,
I
and
found,
it's all in the. Sorry, actually, it is a part of the conversation. But of course, I know this is just, this is just a drop in the ocean. This is a very expansive conversation. So I did want to, as I was brainstorming ideas and thoughts and feelings, and I spoke to people I love, I, brainstormed quite a bit, and then I realized I just
mm,
wanted to rein it in. So just to finish off
mm,
some of the potential solutions, I was thinking skirts, maybe sweat-proof,
yes,
like we said, yeah, that sweat-proof, non-tight sort of uh, pants.
pants,
And
pants.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there are infinite clothing options, but I think the fundamental question is this a concern that other women are feeling? I think that's also my question. I just want to know what, in terms of, if we had to throw out a net, who would
Yes.
be feeling the same way? Is it just the people I've been speaking to, I don't just
Mm,
want to speak to people I know, because of course that's just an echo chamber. So that's the fundamental question. And then if this is a concern that other women are feeling, what are what can be done? Do we approach brands? Do we approach yeah, I guess, what do the first steps look like, and what are some of the potential solutions? These are the three questions that I have.
so your first, let's talk about your solution. So your first one, squats. I have went to a Nike store and I found a skirts for my mother. So they have a skirt on top and underneath it's tight.
That's right.
But I think that was more marketed towards the tennis section. So that also comes in such limited quantities that it's not something that you can just find freely available. Actually, I think I got it on Take a Lot, and it's one of those rare finds that I found for my mother because she doesn't feel comfortable with tights, just walking around in tights, you know. Um, the other thing you mentioned, pretty and practical. Yo, I feel like sometimes women's clothes as general are not practical. Like the tights will be so pretty, but the pocket will be this small. You can't even put
I
your
know.
keys in it.
I
And
know.
I know some women's clothes come with pockets that are not actually pockets, they're just
What?
decorations.
I know. What is that? For what? I'm sorry. Like, I don't understand what you're trying to do here. For what?
So so like as you're brainstorming, we're brainstorming now. There's either like there's two solutions, right? It's either somebody somewhere rallies up the brand designers or whatnot to be more inclusive, and I've seen it happen with clothes for plus size women where they're introducing tights and tops and all of these for bigger sizes. So you'll get like an XL, a double XL, a triple XL now that they're being more inclusive. And then in terms of the gap, so there's a gap in the market, right, for products that you would like to see, but they're not being made.
Yeah.
There are brands, for example, I know modest swimwear, right? You just don't find modest swimwear easily available. So there are brands that specifically saw that market and they targeted it and they said, we're going to create modest swimwear for women who want to go to the beach but also want to cover up. Nike recently got on the trend where they created like a head to toe
Yeah, I saw
swimwear,
that.
modest swimwear. But it's accessibility as well. I don't think it's available in South Africa. And also the price, I think, would be out of range for a lot of people. Because literally a head to toe Nike outfit would probably be like 3,000 or something like that.
Yeah. I mean,
So maybe,
I don't think we have the time to quite get into the economics
no, we don't.
of activewear, but
Yes.
it is something that came up, and perhaps a conversation we can have at another time after we do some research, because I found some very interesting case studies and research that has been done by some PhD students in the US, and I think they're definitely
Okay.
worth having a look for potential future conversations anyway. So yeah, those are the
Okay.
questions that I have to leave you with is, well, you and people who listen, is do you feel the same way? Do you feel exposed or unsupported in terms of what you're wearing when you decide to be active or when you want to be active? And then if this is the case, whose responsibility is that, and what are we looking at? What are the first few steps that we can take? How, as a consumer, can we redirect the narrative? And without then that being, 3,000 Rand for a pair of, aerodynamic,
Tights.
waterproof
Yes.
shorts or tights.
Mm.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah. Actually,
And I want to now switch up and ask
yeah.
you,
Yes.
what makes you feel comfortable when you're being active?
What makes me feel comfortable? Is this question general, or like is it particular to clothing?
Let's put it to clothing, and then if you feel that you can expand it more, you can include things like not being catcalled and all of that.
Your okay. Direct with clothing, what makes me feel comfortable is the material.
Yes.
Yeah, the material of the clothing that I'm wearing, and just how it feels to the skin and to the touch. Yes, and then in the greater perspective, I think experiencing the outdoors, being active in a group, because then I don't feel so alone and targeted. But I prefer, which is interesting, because I actually prefer to exercise by myself. I prefer to move. I dream of a day where I can run in the mountains by myself. I dream of a day where I can run in the mountains by myself
And feel safe.
and feel safe.
And do you think, personally for you, if there were more women-only fitness spaces, that would make your fitness life better?
It would. I think we had this conversation. I told you about a trail run that I did. Catch Me If You Can
Yes,
does
yes, yes,
all women's
yes,
trail runs. Yeah. And
yes.
I don't know how. I don't know the exact like workings of it, but this all women's event was different to any other event that I've taken part in. And I actually just did it not because it was an all women's event. I primarily did it because it was a trail run and I wanted to run a trail and feel safe. And so that's why I did it. And only when I got there, I was just like, there was this strong presence. And I felt safe and I felt held. And because I wasn't expecting it, because I hadn't particularly chosen this event based on its all women participation, but having been in there, I was just like, damn, like power, you know, I have nothing else to say.
I asked you this question because I had a conversation with Dumi, and she's currently living in Bahrain and she's working in an all-woman gym.
Okay.
And we also had this discussion where she was sharing her experiences and the women who also come and exercise there, how they feel, and you know how her experiences have been in the fitness industry as a woman. So I just wanted to pose that question to you, just pick your brain for a bit. Yeah, so for you, what's next? I know that you're planning to do, or you're currently enrolled in your master's.
Yes.
Are there any marathons you want to do when, you know, we're all vaccinated and we can run again? Any trail runs?
Oh my gosh, Atlee. There's, yeah, okay. I would love to do, I'd love to do a triathlon, but they don't, the kind of triathlon that I'm looking for doesn't currently exist. So a couple of friends and I have created one that we did 2 years ago. And I'd like to redo that. So it's not like an official event. It's more of like a friends and family event that we'll self-organize. So that's something I'm very much looking forward to. And then something that I'd like to do is this is something that's recently come to mind, is I'd love to run all 13 peaks in and around Cape Town. So Devil's Peak,
Okay.
Lion's Head, Table Mountain, Muizenberg. I don't even know them all. I can just about name a quarter of them. But my housemate's
Chapman's
running
Peak.
them. I think it is Chapman's Peak, yeah. Yeah.
Do you also want to run Chapman's Peak?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I didn't know there were 13 peaks in Cape Town. So you've
13,
taught me something today.
Yes, I'm going to send you the link, okay?
Yes, please. Yes, definitely.
I want to, the fundament being is I just want to run in the mountains more. I would love to run in the mountains more.
And that's something, you know, like running freely. I think us as men, that's something we take for granted. Like there's never a day where I feel like somebody is gonna catcall me or I'm not gonna feel comfortable or anything. Like I could be wearing the shortest shorts, of which I have a collection of, but I'll never feel uncomfortable to a point where I'm saying, "Oh, I don't want to run because, you know, I don't know how this looks on me. Or is this going to entice somebody to do some harm to me? You know." So I really value this conversation that we had. Somebody else listening, this will also blow their mind and they'll learn a thing or two. And for you, I thought of this question after we had had our conversation. So if you woke up one day and you were a boy, what would you do?
I'd run in the mountains. I'd run in the mountains, man. I'd run in the mountains every day.
Uncaged.
Yes. If I had to think about it, sorry, that was the first thing that came to my mind. If I had to think about it, what would I do? Yeah, that's it. That's definitely it.
That's exactly it. Run in the mountains. I love it. I love how simple it is. You just want to run in the mountains.
Yeah.
And my last, this is not really a question, but a message for the women of South Africa who are going to be watching this for Women's Month. What would you say?
I'd say that together we are stronger. I'd say that unsubscribe from the narrative that another woman is your competition. Unsubscribe from the narrative that when other women are blooming, that means you bloom less, because that's not the truth. The truth is that when we bloom together, it's like fire, you know, and there's a reason that women have been suppressed throughout the ages, because there is fire. There is such power, a fire that's cleansing of all the systematic BS, you know? And that starts by holding another woman's hand. Together we are stronger.
And you experienced the stronger element when you were doing the Catch Me If You Can race, right?
Yeah, it was one star in the constellation, yeah.
I love your message. Thank you so much, Monique, for joining me this afternoon. It was a very good and informative conversation that we had. If you share those links from those journals those studies that you found, I can also share them as part of this podcast episode. And yeah, very interesting to hear your insights on how you feel when running. Something that I've never thought about, because I always think of the perspective that from the men's section we always have black clothes and, you know, shorts and loose clothes, never anything tight. When in contrast, on the other side, it's always everything tight and never anything, you know, not form fitting. So it's very interesting to get that insight. Thank you so much, everybody that's watching this. You can also catch this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play Podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And yeah, Monique, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Weekend plans?
Actually, before I tell you about weekend plans, which are, separate fact, thank you for having this conversation. Thank you for getting in touch. Thank you for getting in touch with other women. Thank you for prioritizing this. Thank you for thinking about this weeks before August. You know, thank you for starting this last year and realizing that it's something to continue this year. And thank you for your time. Above all, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me and sharing your insights. And I love the effort that you put into this and the thought that you put behind it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think you put a lot of effort into reading up around this topic and selecting the final topic that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important. Thank you for being patient with me. I hope you have a lekker weekend, and we will speak soon, and I'll send you those links after we end this call.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes. Bye.
Cheers.